Welcome to Navigating Hope, your compass to health empowerment. I'm Dr. Jaime Hope, steering you through healthcare, overcoming overwhelm, personal goals, and emergencies. We'll navigate the healthcare maze with actionable insights and real-world advice, unlocking the secrets to a healthier, more vibrant life. Join us to take control of your well-being and make informed decisions for your health and your future. Stay with us as we unravel the mysteries of medicine, wellness, and life's unforeseen challenges, helping you bypass the ER with a dose of knowledge. Stay tuned till the end of the episode with a recap of your actionable insights and a free gift. Let's chart a course to your well-being together. Okay, welcome back to another episode. I am ecstatic to bring Dr. Liz. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She is a distinguished and experienced geriatrician with decades of experience in geriatric healthcare. She's a passionate advocate for the elderly, dedicated to protecting seniors from various forms of exploitation and abuse. Her expertise spans clinical practice, education, and advocacy, making her a leading voice in the fight against elder financial exploitation schemes. Her commitment to safeguarding the financial and emotional well-being of seniors have made her a trusted expert in this field. She's an assistant professor at UCSF, University of California, San Francisco, consultant for the San Francisco Elder Abuse Forensics Center, and even does house calls for complicated elders, and is creating an online community for education, support, and connection around her passions. Dr. Liz, what you do is so important. I'm incredibly grateful to have you here today.
Well, thank you, Dr. Hope. I'm happy to talk about elder abuse or all things over 50.
Fantastic. So, let's dive right in because it's frustrating. It's unfair that this happens. But let's talk about those financial exploitation schemes. Now, first of all, if these scammers use their powers for good instead of evil, they could solve a lot in the world. But they're coming after our older adults with these phone schemes, these financial exploitation schemes. So walk us through, what does this landscape look like right now?
Well, I have one talk called Criminals Diagnose Dementia Faster Than Doctors.
Oh, okay, that's really cuts, but you're right.
Right. And it's like, was it Billy the Kid or someone said, why do you rob banks? It's where the money is. Elders often have more assets. And as their cognition declines, one of the first things that can go is their risk assessment. So they may not catch that something smells funny, and they may be more trusting to send in their money or be taken advantage of. And the world is changing, so schemers can come in through the telephone, through the internet, even charities in the mail. So that one we can touch on. But the thing that I find so pernicious about that is once you do something, like you do something good, like contribute to a charity, then your name is on a list that goes and gets sent to other charities. And if you've got some cognitive problems, you're like, oh, it's a charity, I've got to give $100. And that's fine if you've got millions of dollars. But if you've only got $50,000, that can be really a problem. And I took care of one gentleman whose daughter was just beside herself and had to protect him and cut him off from all of that, which is sad. I mean, it's charities. There are people that in San Francisco at the Marina Safeway, there are the scams of the girls going up to the older men saying, befriending them and then saying, oh, I need $30,000 for a kidney surgery. Well, they're not going to have kidney surgery, but they've formed
bonds. Cash for kidney surgeries. Come on.
Exactly. And $30,000, well, that'll get you in the ER, but that's about it.
Right. I was like, that's one night here.
I've seen scams from some ministers, some lawyers, some care managers. I mean, anyone who is, or neighbors, anyone who is in a position of power over someone who has diminished risk assessment and cognition has the power to do good and protect them, or has the power to take their meager, or sometimes it's not so meager, but it's still take advantage of them.
And it's terrible. I think there's some difference in generational trust. I think our younger generations are taught verify anything, look it up on the internet. They're getting their test results, they're Googling stuff before you're in the room. And our older generation had a different level of trust, which is good and bad. There's a plus and a minus to that. I know if I give a recommendation, people are much more likely to listen in that generation. But what if it's not the right recommendation? Or what if they don't realize to ask more questions? How do we?
So I'm so glad you're doing your podcast, because if you go to Dr. Google, there's so many scammers out there on the internet
Lord,
selling,
I can't even get
snake oil and
everywhere.
Get rich quick schemes. What I suggest to do, besides listen to Dr. Hope's podcast, is go to either the Alzheimer's Association, the Family Caregivers Alliance. You can go to, even better, go to your local county association on aging. Most counties have them, and get more information and resources. So go to places that can be trusted.
Yes.
And eventually, Dr. Liz Geriatrics will have a community to talk about things like this, but we're not there yet.
Yes, and that is in process. And it's really important because, and that's why I started doing this, because there are so many snake oil salesmen and so many people with a loud voice on social media. Those of us who are practicing physicians, who are actual experts in our field, that are not selling nonsense and BS, are busy not selling nonsense and BS and taking care of our patients. And so we forget that we need to also be a voice of reason out there, so that our patients, and on behalf of themselves and the people they care for, have information.
Right.
So, well, let's talk about this. So we're going to go through some of the common financial schemes, kind of how they do it. And I've had this happen multiple times, but like a couple instances, but one specific, a friend of mine, her father was much older than her. He married her mom, who was younger than him, and had my friend at a late age. So he was much older, but Army colonel, intelligent man, stoic, fierce, strong man. And it took them quite a long time to figure out that he was being financially taken. And so the scammers first were like, a couple $100 here, a couple $100 there. And they realized this is a big fish. And so it wasn't until somebody noticed that he was buying these large amount Target gift cards. And they finally asked him, like, what is this for? And he said, well, the IRS is coming after me, and I want you kids to inherit some money when I die. They really hit all those push buttons, but somehow with that dementia had lost that bit of reasoning that the IRS does not accept payment in Target gift cards. Right. And so it's sad. So how are they, in this, we've got the romance scams, investment, grandparent scams, home repair scams, phishing scams, like, what are all of these?
So, well, let's take this case. I mean, I can do specifics, more easily to illustrate. So in this case, so let's talk about capacity. Let's get back to the basics. So capacity is the ability to understand risks and benefits for a proposed intervention, whether that's a financial intervention like reverse mortgages, rarely a good idea because someone's got to pay it back, or they take your house, or medical interventions like you're 92 and they're talking about doing a carotid endarterectomy because you've got a little plaque there, and you have to understand that the outcomes may be worse than like doing nothing. So the highest level is financial capacity, where you have to understand your assets, a lot of abstract concepts and a lot of risk concepts. So one of the things I do, and I think families are going to need to intervene, because it sounds like this gentleman, if they're successful, they're male, they've been the patriarch, they're not likely to let other people into their, know about their finances, know about any weaknesses. And it's not because they're in denial. It's something called anagnosia, meaning they don't recognize what they don't recognize. Rumsfeld's unknown unknowns. And so if you can do something less threatening than taking them to the neurologist, say, Dad, I worry about little strokes. I heard something that if you draw a clock and make it say 11:10, that you've got your spatial abilities. So I don't talk about dementia either. I talk about little strokes because they aren't as threatening. And you'll be surprised when someone starts to lose their abstract abilities, they might often put the hands on the 10 and the 11 instead of the 11 and the 2. So that's an abstract concept. The other one I do is 25% of $22.50. You can do it with pen and paper, but you really ought to be able to handle that if you're going to be handling your financial accounts. So if you're having trouble with either one of those, then you really need to get assessed. I've given talks about financial abuse, like with lawyers, and they're like, yeah, you just need to go to the doctor and get a mini mental status exam. And the reason I'm bringing up all these things is because that's what I see out there. And the mini mental status is a good screen. You can find it online. There's also the MoCA, the Montreal Cognitive Assessment. And what it is a 30-point test, but none of it is about risk assessment. None of it is really abstract. They ask you the day, the date, they ask you to copy a design, a few easy things. You can have a 30 out of 30. You can be perfect and still not have financial capacity because you don't have your risk assessment and you don't have your judgment. And so I often say that mini mental is 26 out of 30, which is what usual doctors would say is not dementia, but all is going to hell. You need more assessment. And a neurologist can kind of help. What I really like is a geropsychologist, is someone who understands elders, and it does like 4 to 5 hours of cognitive testing to go through every little part and see which parts are working, which aren't. And this is where the geriatrician comes in. I've seen academic disciplinary teams where they have the social worker and the pharmacist and everyone, and then they do the neuropsych testing, but they do it while someone's on Ativan or Detrol or Keppra. There's a number there. That's where we geriatricians come in on our website, Dr. Liz Geriatrics, and in my book, we have a whole section about the psychoactive medications and common medications like Tylenol PM that can make people look more like they've got dementia than they actually do. So those would be the things I would do first.
So to get into the starting point, so say I'm a family member and I'm seeing my parent, maybe they're a little bit forgetful, they have a few things I'm a little bit worried about. What are some signs that I should look out for that I should recommend in any way that will get them to do it, to go see a specialist?
Well, that's the big challenge. I mean, as with your friend's father, they're like, I don't have a problem. I don't need that. That's why I suggest doing, kind of that little testing of the clock, the calculation. If their mood has changed, if they tend to get more angry than they used to, if they're more irrational, if they're more inappropriate. Sometimes people can be a little more sexually inappropriate. And at a certain point in dementia, it's only because they think the female caregiver is their wife when they got married. So yeah. It's not really creepy, but in the beginning, it can look kind of creepy because they lose their social functioning. That's
that dirty old man thing. They're not all jerks. Some of them they've kind of lost that inhibition that you're not that person to have that conversation with.
Right. Or that relationship with,
Yes.
If they aren't taking their medications correctly, if they're forgetting appointments, if they're not paying bills, if they're not paying taxes. I, as a consultant to the Elder Abuse Forensic Center, one of the other abuses is neglect. And one woman has stopped paying her mortgage, and then the bank took her house, and nothing happened before that.
I mean, so many steps along the way where this could have been helped, where we protect our elders.
So that's when we get into the sociology of all this. I mean, elders, for a lot of people, are not a money-making enterprise. And so a lot of their needs get ignored or they get done just on charity. I mean, it drives me nuts. I was just looking, financial elder abuse costs $2.3 billion a year. And like last year, 101,000 elders were scammed. And the average take is 33,000. But like the Grinch who stole Christmas, a number of times, like there's been sweetheart swindles where another classic one is the caregiver sells the old man, marries the old man, gets a hold of all his assets, and then extracts the assets and leaves him penniless, and then they leave the country or something like that. So it's a challenge. What I would suggest is that if you see some of these things and you're not sure where to start, you can start with the doctor, but you need several A geriatrician is always nice.
I firmly believe in that you specialize in the changes that are a part of aging and can recognize those nuances. It's as a specialty, it's incredibly important.
Well, there's only 3,500 full-time practicing geriatricians in the
Yes, there
country
are
out of
not enough.
330 million. Right. So that's kind of a problem. Good fiduciary can be helpful. Someone who is trustworthy. It's not necessarily a family member. A lot of financial abuse is propagated by a family member, unfortunately, but a good fiduciary and then a good elder law attorney, because they will know how to structure things. And if there is some, I've seen families do a number of different things. Oh, if there's not family in town, a good, reliable care manager, often a nurse care manager, because they'll be more aware of the medical changes. That's just a bonus. If we're talking about finances. And then if what I've seen families do, if they don't want to like really confront someone with their deficits, you get control of the mail, you get control of the telephone, and then you have someone with them when they're on the internet. You can see what they're doing. So that keeps them from a lot of the points of entry of the scammers.
That's huge. Yeah, if you can kind of block the access, that's going to make a world of difference.
Right. There's some situations where those sorts of things aren't enough. Like I had one woman who was her dementia was pretty advanced and she was delusional and would get upset. She had chosen her friend over her son to be her DPOA, but her friend ran a ski resort up in the Sierras. And so she was gone. The son came in and took her to a lawyer, that was kind of shady, and had his mom, who obviously didn't have capacity, sign over the other house. So he had one house, he wanted both houses. She got evicted, and the friend just decided not to press. She was the one who had standing, but decided not to press charges because it was just too much. And she was 80 or something like that. So we got to think about these things. It's challenging.
It is, and it's really scary. And there's that fine line between protection and autonomy, because I know a lot of I did an earlier episode with Jennifer Cainbrook-Moza, who calls them olders instead of elders, out of a sign for just incredible respect. And she created a concierge service. So if you're older, is still living in the home, they can call someone to come fix a light bulb or do caregiving. And they've been vetted, so they're not going to scam or steal.
That's nice.
Oh, no, it's lovely. And it's in Chicago, but it needs to be everywhere. So that people want to stay in the home. They want to stay independent. They want the dignity of autonomy. They've lived a good life. They've had professions and stuff like that. So we don't want to be insulting, to take away their autonomy, their dignity, but we need to protect them. That is a challenging place to be in.
It's one of those things where I pretty much worry about the finances, like Anna Nicole Smith. If an older man wants to have an Anna Nicole Smith, as long as they understand the risks and the benefits of an Anna Nicole Smith, I think that's fine. And what I suggest is if you put the finances in a trust, that, irrevocable trust, I think is what it is. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer. But if you do that and then they have the relationship and there's not the financial gain possibility, I've seen that a number of times. So that's why I think the elder law attorney is really important, to get that set up, protect their assets, and then let them have their romance. Let them go on that cruise around the world, let them go adventure once you've protected their money, no matter what happens. So as long as you've got the trust and a trustee who will be looking out for the elder. And I actually like elder. I think that's a nice kind of a nice term of phrase. I think they should be able to do what they want. I have one lady who was 86, 87, could barely move, but she really wanted to go to Hawaii. And it's like, she's going to die sometime. So if she died in Hawaii, she would have died happy. She came back and then she got more frail and then she went on hospice, but she got to go to Hawaii.
Yes. Yes, like these olders, they should get to enjoy their money that they spent a lifetime earning. And that's why it's so angering to see people try and take that away.
Right. I mean, another thing would be if like someone has dementia, but they really enjoy baseball and they want to go to a baseball game. I heard another family complaining that the court-appointed fiduciary wouldn't let go to the baseball game. Well, there's ways around it. With people with dementia, too much of a crowd can be irritating to them. They can get confused and agitated. You can do something. You can get box seats, so you can have your own space. You can go to AAA baseball where there just aren't so many people to start with. You
Yeah.
know, I think that's one of the joys that I have is helping people be creative and saying, yeah, you can do that. That's fine. Or no, they've got Parkinson's and getting on and off of a boat would be really dangerous. Why don't you take a cruise or something like that? That trying to help them with the risk assessment.
Well, and I think that's really great because you're seeing, so they do have realistic limitations in some ways, but how can you not pretend those don't exist, but work with those so they can still enjoy themselves?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
that's lovely.
Yep. So other concerns, anyone who's supposed to be an advisor to older people who then, well, wants to take control of their finances, that's a huge red flag. I'll give you another classic example. So the widow of the wealthy man has the contractor come in to work on the kitchen, and then he spends more time with her. They get to be romantically involved. He gets control of her money and blocks her from seeing her family, her friends, and her lawyer.
Mm.
And to me, those are like, woo, woo, woo.
Oh,
But
yeah, so
then,
many red flags.
then there was an issue of the daughter was concerned about the health care for the mother, but now she's married and it's her husband making the choices. And the court is now acknowledging the husband as the decider. And I don't see that like our courts quite understand this. Like, how the hell did Britney Spears get conserved? So it's not always the judge knows best. The judge is only as good as kind of the knowledge and the culture around. Like you said, there's states which are much more paternalistic than other ones.
Mm-hmm.
So in the Britney Spears case, I guess that she was just distraught, losing custody of her children and those sorts of things, and was acting a little weird. And her father had gotten control of things, and the court codified that. But for someone to be conserved, that means they can't provide food, shelter, clothing. They can't take care of themselves. She was doing $1 million shows in Vegas for a year. So basically, she was enslaved.
Yes, absolutely.
And I've seen situations where people who have capacity have been judged not to. And it's really, you have to get a good lawyer. And if you get a bad judge, you have to appeal. It's kind of our society doesn't understand aging.
No, oh, not at all. Not from a medical aspect, not from a legal. And as our population is aging, there are more aging adults every day. So we need to know how to create experiences in restaurants that they can enjoy. Not everyone enjoys the screaming children and the loud noise because of hearing issues, dementia, like that we're not geared toward our olders.
Well, that's so funny. So I kind of go with the world that we have. So I tell people, you can take your loved one with dementia out to the restaurant until they can't handle it. Then you get takeout and you do the picnic in the park. Then you can be in the private dining room at the facility and have it fancy there. So I'm kind of the levels that we have. I actually think that it's just it depends on who's paying the price, and if those that have money, like the insurance companies, the government, the banks, if it's not impacting them, I'm not sure that there's going to be a big change. I mean, I think the Americans with Disabilities Act was huge, huge. I think eventually we'll get something like that for aging, but I don't see it anytime too soon. So everyone needs to, kind of be on the lookout. So at drlizgeriatrics.com, you can bring us your questions, and I'm actually working on an elder financial abuse book. I've already done a book about care of dementia, living in the moment, overcoming challenges, and finding moments of joy in Alzheimer's and other dementias, which one of my reps was saying, talk to me before you name another book. That's not a good name. I was like, but I like the name. Anyway.
Right? All right, I I like the name too, because I think it's
Living
really
in the moment.
important. We can't, whilst we work to change the system and improve the bigger picture for these people, they still need to live in their actual life as it currently is.
I agree. I'm
So,
actually aiming for hospitals. If someone with dementia gets admitted for agitation, the average stay is 60 days at the cost of $600,000. I mean, if you get the
oh
meds
Lord.
right, then you can usually get them out into a good community for, in just a week, which is, a fraction of that. So there are things that can be done if we find our way. Protecting elders, I think it takes a village. I think you need to look out for your neighbors. You need to look out for your loved ones. If you hear about something going on in another state for a relative, I think you're going to have to go there. I mean, I think you could call the local agency on aging, but it's not likely. If Adult Protective Services was set up for just general elder abuse, and if an elder says, no, I don't want any help, that's the end of it.
Oh
So
boy.
they look at food, clothing, shelter. They don't, unless it's really obvious, they don't do the financial piece.
Yeah. And that's really huge. And if they get scammed out of enough money, then they will no longer have the resources for that food, clothing, and shelter. But if nothing is done until that point, it breaks my heart.
Well, you're doing the first step is getting more information out there. And I really appreciate the opportunity to speak about this.
Yes, no, I think awareness is key. So if I'm a family member of my elderly person who I love, and I see that they're going to a lawyer or a financial advisor, how can I help to make sure that this is a reputable person?
Go with them.
Okay, I love it.
So they should be by themselves, but then you should. Oh, so if you do have an elder, I would talk to them and ask that someone that's trustworthy be involved. And another good way to do it is to be on their bank account. So you can see what they're doing. They can write the checks and use the credit card, but you can see what's going on. So if something starts to be going awry, then you can step in before everything's drained.
Yes, you start seeing those suspicious purchases. And I love that some stores are now training their clerks if they see an older adult buying large amounts of gift certificates or anything else, just ask a few questions.
Yeah, in California, a friend of mine who went back to law school when she was 60 got legislation passed that banks, if they have any concerns, need to report it for elders making unusual, bank transactions.
That's fantastic. I know, like I've had plenty of scam calls. Somebody said that oh God, they said my social security card was stolen and that I needed to pay to get it reinstated because it got canceled. And I'm trying not to laugh because I still have all my risk assessment tools
Right.
in place. And I was bored. So I decided to kind of go along with it and be like, oh no, I'm so scared. Should I give you my credit card? And the guy's like, yeah. And I'm like, how do you sleep at night? And hung up on him. But
The one that almost got me was, because I do a lot of speaking about geriatrics, is I was invited to an international geriatrics and gerontology program in 3 months, and they wanted me to speak. But then I looked at the program and I couldn't find it on Google, and it's like, that's what I want for Christmas more than anything else, is to be in a big conference. And I looked at the program and it wasn't there. It's like, wait a minute. So they kind of get you where you live. And somehow, I mean, I don't give my social security number out to anyone. The dentist doesn't need to have it. I am very careful who gets any of my information. I'm very careful on websites. Oh, QuickBooks, I use them. They were saying that they're not updating for the last version and you need to check with them. Always look at the email address. So it might say it's from Chase Bank, but then the email address is from something else. So
yes,
that's a pretty easy way to find scammers on the internet.
those little details. I've seen some fantastic phishing emails, where they're trying to scam you. Now my husband and I share an Amazon account. And so I started getting all these Amazon alerts, but it's all in his name, which is very funny. And it was coming to my email, which is not associated with the account. And they do a pretty decent job, but the actual email itself was Amazon, which if I hadn't look, your eyes just brush right past it. And it's like, oh, you're going to be charged this $799 unless you click here. And right before you click, just step back and take a look. And I already knew Amazon does not have my email address.
Right.
So I was like, oh, let me look and see if I can find the scam. And it was actually kind of funny because some of them are very obviously terrible. Like
Right.
I got a call that barely spoke English and they said the authorities are coming to get me for and then it pauses and it says list of crimes and then goes back. I kept the recording because it's so funny, but I can see why
Right.
people would
I
fall
think
for.
I'm rather concerned about this AI deep fakes voices.
Yes.
So some banks want to use my voice as record. I'm like, no. I just got these glasses from Zenni. It's a Chinese company. It's $100 for progressives, which is great. Within 6 days, they're like, they want to do a picture of my face so I could see how the frames will look. I'm like, no,
No thanks.
you don't need my face. You don't need my voice. You don't need my social security. And I will call your bank on the number that you know to check out something before you respond to anything that comes in any other way.
Yeah, I got a fraud alert and it looked like it was very similar to the bank one. And it said, okay, we're going to text you a code right now. And it did. And then it said, okay, read us the code. But the text says, we will never call you for this code.
Right.
But I'm on the phone with the people who are saying they're my bank. And I'm telling the guy, I'm like, I'm not going to read this to you because the text says, don't do it. He's like, but it's us sending it. I'm like, end of call. All
Right.
done.
Right.
So, but those, there are some that are a lot more believable than others that I could easily see how it could happen.
Right. For elders, I mean, the other things that family members can do is elders who spend a lot of time by themselves can get lonely. Even if they're cognitively intact, they can get lonely and it makes them more vulnerable. If you can get them to a day program or out with other people, more involved with their church, their synagogue, or, community groups, I think that's huge. And keeping them connected that way is great for so many things.
It really is. It's their physical activity, their cognitive ability, that because you start to get depressed, the emotional, and I think that you decline faster in those situations. Well, you're the expert. What do you see?
Yeah, studies show that people who have depression after a heart attack are much more likely to die. And that happens as you get older. Actually, just a quick health flash. All these MD gurus, as I call them, selling all these supplements and saying that wheat can cause dementia and this 36-point plan will cure dementia. Well, nothing has been shown to cure dementia yet, not even the amyloid antibodies. But having a plant-based diet, 30 minutes of exercise every day, being engaged with people that are important to you and doing something that's important to you is huge. That is the secret of life. That will keep you stronger and more independent. And it's so simple and it doesn't cost a lot.
Dr. Liz, it's so funny because I'm so anti-snake oil and I have had experts in orthopedic surgery, spine surgery, like all these different things. And the thing that everyone has in common is they're saying there's not a magic pill. Anyone who is selling you one is a lie. You need to sleep more. You need to eat better. You need to eat healthier. I mean, for people who are listening to this, experts in every field are telling you there's no magic wand. There's no magic pill.
Right.
These are the things you need to do. And then here are some advanced level techniques that are specific to your field that can help. That's a green flag for a true actual expert practitioner. I just really wanted to point that out.
I'm not selling them for $129.99 a month.
Right. Like it's so green flaggy to see that this cadre of experts who have not necessarily heard or spoken to each other, that's how you can tell when you're looking for an expert to follow, when you have this elderly family member and you're like, gosh, who do I go see? You Google, you get all kinds of nonsense. You get these fake gurus trying to sell you snake oil and magic wands and everything else. And so that's why I find people like Dr. Liz, who is an expert in geriatric medicine and all things elder and aging and protection and advocacy. And that's why we want to connect you to as many people as humanly possible so they have this resource.
Well, you are a huge resource yourself. Thank you so much. I was just thinking, how can I make sure that everyone can see this too? Because I have my little niche, but there's so much else to health that it's important for people to know about as well. So thank you very much.
Thank Thank you. And like truly the work that you do, these underdiagnosed dementia, those signs, I know you've got the courses, you are creating a community, which I think above all, anyone who is on this journey, either themselves or as a caregiver, you feel alone, you feel frustrated, you feel overwhelmed.
And then
So
you're
just,
vulnerable.
yes. So as we're kind of closing here, what message would you like to share with these people that are going through this journey?
So speaking to the caregivers, I would say you're not alone and you can't do it alone. No one person can take care of all the needs of someone else. The studies have shown that if you try and do that, you're going to burn out, your health is going to tank, and you may die faster than they are. I've seen families where, Sue lives closest to mom, so Sue can just give up her life for 8 years and just take care of mom. And then there's an expectation that Sue doesn't get any money for any of her care for any of that time. So you need to advocate for yourself. You need to use the elders' assets to help care for them. And then you need to work to get the team to help support. And it can be joyful. I've taken care of a number of my specialty is taking care of elders who are kind of very agitated with dementia and no one else has been able to fix them. And I fixed this one woman's medication, and I don't use Ativan, I don't use Xanax. So there are definitely better ways. But this one woman's son said, thank you. My mom was always nicer to company than she was to us. So now that she doesn't recognize us, we've got a nicer relationship. So things can get better. It's not going to be the way you expected it. And you have to let go of the past and you have to live in the moment and enjoy your loved one where they are. Tell them what they can process. Don't tell them everything like, oh no, your husband died. And then they have the trauma again. And 10 minutes later, your husband died.
Yes.
Change the subject. Do things that they can do, things that they enjoy doing, and take care of yourself.
Thank you. I love how with the journey, you are a resource and you help people with tools and practical advice, but that reminder that one, get help, and two, there is still joy.
Oh, definitely.
So much joy. I mean, we have so many more things to cover. So I know that there are a lot of people who are listening who are thinking, oh my gosh, that's me. So stick around after this for your takeaways and your free gift. drlizgeriatrics.com. Is that the best place that the listeners can find you?
That's it.
Okay, fantastic. So we'll put that in the show notes as well. Resources, there are more things coming down the pipeline that Dr. Liz is utilizing her expertise and resource to create these things, these gifts, these communities for people so they have a safe place to go. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here, Dr. Liz. I appreciate you.
Oh, my pleasure. Have a good day.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of the Navigating Hope podcast. Our guest today was Dr. Elizabeth Landsverk, a distinguished geriatrician and a passionate advocate for elder care, particularly in safeguarding seniors from exploitation and ensuring they receive appropriate medical care. Here are your 5 key takeaways from this enlightening conversation. Number 1, safeguarding elders from exploitation. Dr. Landsverk emphasized the growing concern around elder financial exploitation. With cognitive decline, elders are often at higher risk for falling victim to scams, including phone schemes, financial exploitation by caregivers, and even abuse by trusted individuals. Awareness and proactive involvement are crucial for preventing these situations. Number 2, generational differences in trust. Dr. Landsverk highlighted how older generations tend to be more trusting, making them more susceptible to scams. Unlike younger generations who tend to be more likely to verify information on the internet, elders might not question a recommendation or be aware of the signs for fraud if it appears to come from a trusted source or a figure of authority. Number 3, capacity and risk assessment. Dr. Landsverk shared insightful tools for assessing cognitive and financial capability in elders. Signs such as difficulty managing finances, forgetting bills, or unusual behavior can indicate cognitive decline. Early detection and intervention are vital for protecting elders from exploitation and ensuring their financial well-being. Number 4, recognizing red flags in advisors. It is important to monitor who is advising your elderly loved ones, especially when it comes to financial and legal matters. Dr. Landsverk warned about potential red flags, including caregivers or advisors who try and isolate the elder from family members or attempt to control their assets. Number 5, elder advocacy and autonomy. Dr. Landsverk spoke about the delicate balance between protecting elders and respecting their autonomy. By setting up protections like trusted fiduciaries or elder law attorneys, families can safeguard assets while allowing the elder to maintain a fulfilling and dignified life. To protect your loved ones and evaluate their healthcare providers, we are offering a free tool, Red Flags and Green Flags, tools for finding and evaluating your healthcare provider for optimal care. This tool can also be used in looking at other advisors, trusted advisors in your life. It guides you through the process of identifying for trustworthiness and safeguarding against exploitation. Click the link below to download your free copy today. Remember, navigating elder care requires vigilance, compassion, and careful evaluation. Stay hopeful, stay determined, and as always, keep navigating your journey with hope. Thank you for tuning into Navigating Hope with me, Dr. Jaime Hope. It has been an honor to navigate the realms of health and wellness with you today. Remember, in the journey toward a healthier life, knowledge is your compass. If you enjoyed our time together, please share, like, and subscribe to Navigating Hope. Join us next week where we'll continue to empower your health journey, arming you with the wisdom to navigate life's challenges and keep the emergency room in your rearview mirror.